Hey everyone, this is Dan from Real Estate Investing and More DIY. Just wanted to make this quick video to talk to you about flood zones and my experience with flood zones in my real estate investing here in upstate New York. Flood zones are not necessarily what you think. If you buy a house directly on a river, you might think that that is in a flood zone, and it might be, or it might not be. You might buy a house that is half a mile from the river and you think there's no way that is in a flood zone, but it might be. Flood zones are defined by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. There are different designations, but the one to worry the most about is Flood Zone A. According to FEMA, one time in 100 years there will be a flood in any property in Flood Zone A. So why should real estate investors care about this? So if you buy a rental property in a flood zone A, and in 100 years, at least one time you will have a flood. Mathematically, that means during the life of a 30-year mortgage, there's a 26% chance that you will have a flood. And banks really don't like these odds. So if you've got a mortgage and you are in a flood zone A, they will require you to get flood insurance because the banks want to protect their own interests. They want to make sure they can get that money back if something happens. The problem is flood insurance can be kind of expensive. So for one of my properties, property number 4, it's in a flood zone. It's a single family house that I bought last year and fixed up. I was able to pay cash for the property, but after fixing up the property, I would like to refinance the property and pull some of that cash out. Kind of like the Burr method. However, to get that cash, the bank is going to require me to have flood insurance, which I have a quote from State Farm as being $13,000 a year, which is a lot of money. Rental properties don't make that much money. And I have a quote from an online website saying almost $2,000 a year. I don't know where the price would be exactly, but I'm not looking to even pay the $2,000 a year. It would just eat too much into my profits. So there is a process to try to be exempt from having to pay flood insurance, even though your property is in flood zone A. If you can show that your property is above a base flood elevation, then FEMA will exempt you from that requirement. And then you can get a loan against the property without having to get flood insurance. So to get exempt, you need to file a letter of map amendment, LOMA. To do that, you need to work with a local land surveyor, which may be an engineer or an architect, and they will calculate what is called the base flood elevation. And they will calculate the elevation of your house. This will be put together and in a elevation certificate, which will show the elevation numbers for your property. It turns out that my property's dirt and landscaping directly adjacent to the property is 4 inches below the base flood elevation, meaning if I bring in enough dirt to bring up the landscaping 5 inches, so it's 1 inch above the base flood elevation, up against the house, the dirt will be above the base flood elevation, and then I will be exempt from having to have flood insurance. So that's what I want to do. From here, the next step is to work with my engineer to find out exactly where the dirt needs to be up against the house. And he's going to put stakes in the ground to show the level of where the dirt needs to come up to. And then I'm going to have the dirt brought in and redo the landscaping around the house as needed. And then the engineer is going to come back out, create a new elevation certificate, and then after that he will submit a letter of map amendment to FEMA, And eventually, hopefully, I hear back and become exempt. So this whole process is a lot of paperwork. It costs some money to get the engineer, and it will cost money to get the landscaping work done. But I'm doing this for two reasons. First is because I want the cash out refinance without having to pay the extra money, which rent really isn't really going to bring in enough to make it worth it. So it's not going to cover all the flood insurance costs plus, the extra cost of having the interest on the money and all that kind of stuff. And the other reason, though, is because I don't have any intentions of selling the property right now. But if I ever did, this should increase the value of the house because any future buyer won't have to pay for flood insurance. And then if you look at the neighboring houses that are still that you still have to get flood insurance, it'll make my house look even more, valuable because it'll be essentially cheaper because you don't have that ongoing thousands of dollars a year of flood insurance. Well, that's all I wanted to show you about in this video. Thanks for watching, and if you don't mind, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, like, and comment to help out the YouTube algorithm.